Hirofumi just now has the wind in their sails, and that could just be what they need, that momentum to be able to go ahead and clinch this game against Gio, Cischke, and here they are on stage.
So that round 2 was the last time I think that Hirofumi lost, and it was to Yoshitaka's Ho-Oh-based team, the only Ho-Oh on the field, and Hirofumi ran into that. You can see why that might be a tough matchup, but look at our trainers on stage here. I mean, they're just seem so calm and collected and ready to go. Clearly very proud of the accomplishment of making it this far.
Gio is just breathing it in. Look at that, looking around the venue, that smile on their face. And you're so right, Ben. It's fantastic to see them remaining so calm here, despite being under the pressure, under the lights, under the scrutiny of the hundreds of people that have amassed out there, not just for our video game Masters top 4 here, but for all of the games, Unite, Pokemon Go, and the Pokemon Trading Card Game. And the beady-eyed amongst you will have noticed there that we do indeed have a Koraidon mirror match. In fact, we have 3 Koraidon in the top 4 and only 1 Calyrex Shadow Rider, Zamazenta.
This is kind of like EUIC all over again, where Koraidon's making an absolute tear in the tournament, but this time on the world stage, we've got a few more Koraidon making it all the way.
And how poetic it would be to have had Miraidon win our last World Championships in Honolulu 2024.
Oh,
and then potentially Koraidon this year, from Violet to Scarlet, back to the future, or should I say, the past. It's nearly time to take a deeper dive into the teams that these trainers have been running. What has been this team of which you speak, Ben, that Gio has been so proud of? The team that have got them such consistent results. Well, here it is right now. Lunala, Koraidon, Chi-Yu, Fluttermane, Groot Bonnet, and Ursaluna.
Yeah, as well, I love this composition, quite similar to Federico Camporesi's team with the Lunala and Miraidon. This one taking Koraidon and taking the team in a slightly different direction, where you've got the Brute Bonnet boosted with its Protosynthesis getting boosted, but it's slightly more aggressive than the Amoonguss counterpart, with the ability to Sucker Punch. That gives the Lunala a little bit of a hand where you can Sucker Punch a Calyrex to stop it going for an Astral Barrage in those situations. One of the things that stood out for me so much with where we've seen Gio on stage already is the commitment to the Meteor Beam. A lot of players really do try to steer clear of both inaccurate moves, but also just not having that Moonblast as a consistent coverage option for the Lunala. That does give Gio the opportunity to go for a Terra Water, and I really like the way that that works, as well as the offensive, fast and offensive component that he's got with the Koraidon, the Fluttermane, and the Chi-Yu.
And the Meteor Beam is going to be so big into Hirofumi's Incineroar here. That super effective damage, a Pokemon that Lunala normally really struggles to hit. Time for Hirofumi's team. Calyrex, Ice Rider, Koraidon, Incineroar, Smeargle, Landorus, and Rillaboom. Smeargle, of course, put on an absolute show in the top 8 match between Hirofumi and Victor Medina. Do check that out if you haven't already, trainers. And it's got Ruination. I love this tech because it means that Smeargle can deal significant damage, but you don't have to invest in its offensive prowess. Ruination, of course, just halving the HP bar as long as it connects into whatever it chooses to go into. And of course, this Smeargle also has a Protect move in Spiky Shield, which is another thing we don't see so often. As for where the Fake Out is, well, you've already got 2 of them on Incineroar and Rillaboom.
Yeah, don't need that on Smeargle as well. And I think this is a really nice way to capitalize on, if you get a speed boost with a Smeargle on the Moody, then you put something to sleep. And oftentimes, Smeargle tends to be a little bit dead weight after that. It wants to stick on the field, it wants to maintain those Moody boosts, but hey, you can't put a Pokemon to sleep for even longer by just continually going for the Spore. I think one of the things that's really important in this matchup, though, is the fact that Hirofumi has dropped moves like Wide Guard and Fake Out on the Smeargle. So having the Smeargle next to another Pokemon doesn't cause the same amount of difficulty for his opponents in like, well, does it Fake Out? Does it go for a Wide Guard? Does it go for a Follow Me? Because actually Hirofumi has taken those options away from the Smeargle. But I do think that it could be one of the keys in this matchup for Hirofumi in an otherwise a pretty tough state of affairs. The Koraidon Calyrex Ice Rider really doesn't necessarily love sitting in front of a Lunala. Certainly not a Lunala with a Power Herb Meteor Beam, and not only boosting up the Moongeist beams, but a Terra Fire on the Koraidon would take super effective damage. You've got the boosted up Meteor Beams to try to deal damage into the Lunala. And as you said before, Charlie, the Incineroar doesn't love to see that on the other side of the field. So I really do feel that Hirofumi has to leverage that, as he did in his top 8 match against Victor Medina.
I want to expand a little bit more on this Lunala, because we have seen before the wrong call and the Meteor Beam going into a Protect, and then of course that Power Herb has been burnt, and that means that Meteor Beam is going to take 2 turns to activate. On future ones, you do still at least get your special attack boost to your Lunala, whether the Meteor Beam connects or not, but it's something Giovanni or Gio has to be very, very careful about indeed. Smeargle could absolutely ruin Nation Gio's day here, but let's hope that Gio can just get the jump on that.
I think like this is one of those situations where we'd be really happy for either of these players to make it to the finals. They've had such good seasons. There's such good feelings towards all of these players that have made it all this way. And I think they've shown that in one of the hardest worlds ever, they still have what it's got.
Are you ready, trainers? It's our second top 4. Is it going to be Gio, Cischke or Hirofumi Kimura joining James Evans in the grand finals tomorrow on Championship Sunday? We want to hear you for Koraidon and Chiyu, Smeargle and Koraidon for Hirofumi.
Immediately, we're off to a really aggressive start from both of these players. The Koraidons staring each other down, but Gio's with the Life Orb has definitely the advantage in terms of damage output here, and with the Smeargle not able to go for a fake out and instead only opting for having a follow me. There is a call to make whether or not Giovanni wants to commit the Terra onto the Chiyu or not here.
And decided against it. Chiyu is remaining with that dark typing. And just the double protect over from Hirofumi's side. Seeing what Giovanni is going to lock into, especially with Chiyu holding the choice scarf. Now Chiyu can only go for Heat Wave as long as it remains on the field.
Yeah, it's like this is a pretty nice situation to have to go for the want to go for the Heat Wave over and over again, but it all comes down to whether or not this Smeargle gets a Moody boost in its speed. If it does, Hirofumi can take the advantage.
No, just a special defense boost and a special attack drop. It's a good thing that Koraidon wasn't targeting into the Smeargle with the Spiky Shield, because a little bit of chip here, a little bit of chip there from the Life Orb recoil as well, and that Koraidon will be much shorter for this match than Gio would have liked otherwise.
Just think, like, looking at this situation as well, the Chiyu, if it goes down in this spot for a little bit of extra damage on Hirofumi's side, I think Gio would probably be pretty happy with that, especially if he's hovering over the flame charge, gets that speed boost, and does in fact outspeed Hirofumi's Koraidon. The Life Orb really starts to come into its own.
The withdrawal of the Smeargle. There's not going to be any spore pressure on this turn. What is Hirofumi switching in from the back in its place is going to be Incineroar, reducing the physical attack of this Koraidon with the Life Orb, not the clear amulet, so very much vulnerable to that. Time for our terrestrialization, which is going to be the target of choice. New type, new me. One of these Koraidon has gone for its Terra Fire type, embracing that Orichalcum Pulse of the past, that Chandelier, hopefully lighting the way for one of these trainers through to the grand finals. Hirofumi's has gone for that, taking this Heat Wave, not very effective before Terra, not very effective after. The Flame Charge now into the Incineroar. Crucially, you get your speed boost on Gio's Koraidon.
And it's whether or not this is a Flare Blitz or a fighting type move, a low kick into the Chiyu. But instead of Flame Charge, so these Koraidons matching each other's speed, but ultimately that does mean that Chiyu remains on the board. Now the question is whether or not that Koraidon on Hirofumi's side has been trained to be faster than Chiyu without a choice scarf item. I kind of like to think that it probably is, and that puts a lot of pressure onto Giovanni's side of the field. But I feel like Gio can actually play this a little bit defensively as well. There's no other boosting options for this Koraidon, and I think if Gio wants to just go for the protect, play a little bit defensively, then he can come back in the next turn.
So much damage being threatened down all around here. Of course, the fire type moves boosted by the sun, not going to be the best option into either of these resisted hit Pokemon, but switching up with the fighting type move is why Chiyu is going to be withdrawing for Gio. Lunala joining the fray instead. Will be taking no damage whatsoever from Koraidon's big fighting type moves. Koraidon for Gio, just going to be keeping itself safe. Now we turn our attention over to Hirofumi's side. What did they go for? Attempted fake out into the Koraidon for Gio. Not going to be flinching here. It's just safe and sound. Now the Koraidon for another flame charge, another speed boost into the Lunala. Not only meaning that they have the jump on Gio's own Koraidon, but meaning that Lunala has been softened up. That shadow shield broken.
And certainly the fact that it cannot protect itself really does matter here in this position where Hirofumi gets an opportunity to Flare Blitz into the Lunala slot. The Chi-Yu switches in, great. If the Lunala doesn't switch out, also great, because it's probably going to pick up a KO here. And we've had a sneak peek that the Brute Bonnet is the last Pokemon on Geo's side in the back. And so a Flare Blitz definitely wouldn't be something that the Brute Bonnet would appreciate. So I think Geo's in a little bit of a sticky situation. But if Hirofumi goes on the offensive this turn, he might need to trade that Koraidon for some extra damage, and that may lead Geo to have a little bit of a more safe endgame.
Coming into the Incineroar's place now, the Smeargle once more. Will it be brought down to its focus ash here? Will it be removed from contention as soon as it joins the field? Hirofumi's Koraidon won't be taking any damage, and it was the close combat into that slot. So Smeargle is at least hanging around for this turn. Lunala, on the other hand, the Meteor Beam, but where did it target? Has this Meteor Beam gone for naught? It's going to be overflowing with space power. It gets its special attack boost. It gets the Power Herb activation. Is it going to connect? Was it into the Protect? The Smeargle dodges and gets a boost to its speed to boot!
This changes everything. This Smeargle now has a chance that it can outspeed this Koraidon. Certainly going to be outspeeding the Lunala with a speed boost, and that Spore pressure is ever present on the field. There's nothing on Geo's side of the field that at the moment can take a Spore, and of course, if the Smeargle is going to outspeed the Koraidon, then a Spore into the Koraidon slot means that Hirofumi can take advantage of those speed boosts on his own Koraidon, take a big KO into Lunala, and really set the stage for something special.
Something special indeed, and we'd expect nothing less at the Pokemon World Championships. The time is ticking for Geo here. This is exactly the momentum swing that Hirofumi needed, exactly the rolls that Hirofumi needed, not in Geo's favor. The Flare Blitz now boosted by the sun, the Lunala so vulnerable, that moon has been eclipsed. The first KO has been taken, and Geo is now 3 Pokemon down to Hirofumi's 4. A huge amount of recoil damage though from that oh so powerful move. Koraidon at least has the opportunity to go toe for toe with Hirofumi's own here, but at what cost? The Smeargle responding with a Spore now, and that's going to be Koraidon snoozing all the way back to Area 0.
I like what Geo's thinking in the sense that they're actually trying to take down the Smeargle a little bit sooner, or at least set it up to be knocked out. And certainly if the Moonblast, the Moody boosts go in Geo's favor, then that could really set things up. But also, now Geo's so much under pressure, and I think that there was an opportunity to try to knock out the Koraidon that turn instead. If the Smeargle goes for a follow me to protect the Koraidon, then you still get the same effect overall, but the Koraidon going down would actually be pretty important in this spot for Geo.
Crucially, Geo does still have their terrestrialization option available here, so Brute Bonnet is looking mighty vulnerable right about now, but going for its Terra Water would mean it could soak up some damage that otherwise it would have been oh so prey to, and that maybe Geo can give Hirofumi a taste of their own medicine here if they're able to get a Spore off themselves.
Yeah, one of the things that Hirofumi has chosen to lock in this time round is a low kick, which usually is pretty similar power to a close combat, but on a Brute Bonnet, it's way, way less powerful. So Flare Blitz, one of the ways that the Brute Bonnet really does take a lot of damage in this spot, but Geo making a call yet again not to go for his terrestrialization.
Hanging on through the low kick there. The Ruination, and it's just going to halve what already was such a low HP number for the Koraidon, just halving whatever HP it's at. But there it is, Geo responding with the Spore. Now Hirofumi. Koraidon asleep, but another speed boost to this Smeargle.
Yeah, it's like, great, you've got the first speed boost. The second one, not so much of a problem for Geo in this spot. What's really been great, though, is the way that Geo has just held their ground in what is quite an adverse field, where this Koraidon has just been able to just carry on attacking turn after turn. But the good thing for Geo here is that Hirofumi's Ruination is not going to be taking a KO anytime soon.
And that Brute Bonnet was so vulnerable, but holding their nerve and preserving the Terror, and it could be that option in the late game that Geo needs. Chi-Yu switching back in, reducing the special defense of everything around it, and it's getting in relatively for free with Smeargle going for its Spiker Shield, but what has the Koraidon locked into? being asleep here. Sucker Punch not going to be able to connect down on anything. Hirofumi just burning at these turns of sleep so Karaito can get something done. My goodness, this Smeargle could not be speedier right now. It is racing around the track.
That is definitely the fastest Smeargle we've ever seen there on the field. I like what Gio's conditioning here, though, trying to catch the Smeargle off balance by going for, if it goes for another Ruination into the Brute Bonnet, then Sucker Punch knocks it out. But again, leaving the Koraidon to burn through its sleep turns, and I think Hirofumi is doing a really good job here of not falling foul of what Gio's trying to do, keeping their Pokemon as healthy as possible for as long as possible to try and maintain the advantage that they've created here, with all of the damage that this Koraidon has been able to sink onto the field.
Chi-Yu has Dark Pulse, and where there's a Dark Pulse, there could be a way going for all of those flinches, but Smeargle is outspeeding everything right now. Koraidon will be remaining asleep. It could wake up next turn. Brute Bonnet has become the center of attention. Any incoming moves from Smeargle will be redirected there. Ruination now into the Brute Bonnet here. It's a Dark type, but it's taking that Dark type medicine as well. Able to eat its berry. Fascinating tech here, given there are so many Calyrex out there in the field, wouldn't be able to eat it otherwise. Now the Heat Wave, finally able to take care of this Smeargle, and Koraidon would not be able to take one more of those.
But now it's safe for this Brute Bonnet to go for its Terra Water, and I think that's something that Hirofumi really needs to be aware of in this situation. Really like how Hirofumi was able to get that Ruination damage off onto the Brute Bonnet, and to be able to put it just that little bit closer to being KO'd. Certainly, if the Calyrex is the last Pokemon on Hirofumi's side, this Brute Bonnet could prove to be a little bit of an uphill battle.
A thorn in Hirofumi's side indeed. Turning the table, Gio now threatening down that Spore, and Hirofumi taking all the time they need to try and lock in. Everything on the line. This determines who will progress through tomorrow to Championship Sunday. The attack drop onto the Brute Bonnet, but it's still able to get up to its pesky shenanigans.
And Incineroar holding the safety goggles here does avoid any shenanigans from this Brute Bonnet. It really can't hit it that hard. Nor can the Chi-Yu, especially where the sun is not remaining on the field, and we see the ability for, I think, Incineroar and Hirofumi to target down that Chi-Yu, put pressure onto that side of the board, especially since Koraidon in the back for Giovanni is sitting pretty low at the moment. I think Incineroar actually is one of those offensive Pokemon that really does make a difference.
Incineroar, we don't often call it defensive, but certainly in this situation it can. The Brute Bonnet really threatened here. A lot being asked of the Koraidon in the back here for Gio, and of course Hirofumi still has one Pokemon as of yet unrevealed. The wake up now from Koraidon, just able to go for a Protect. Able not to take any damage this turn from behind that shield. The Heat Wave, not going to be doing anything into Koraidon, of course, with the Connect onto the Incineroar. Good for a decent amount of damage, what with Beads of Ruin, reducing the special defense of everything, but the Flare Blitz into the Chi-Yu, able to hang on with 18 HP. You're going to be softening yourself up there as well, thanks to the recall damage. The Seed Bomb attempted just to take care of this Koraidon once and for all and make it a thing of the past.
So, like trying to get around those Sucker Punch mind games. I think Hirofumi played this really, really well, where I didn't want to take that risk at all. There's a good chance that the Koraidon wakes up that turn, and there is a temptation to go for a switch out, but actually a Protect blocks the Sucker Punch at the same time that it stops the Heat Wave from picking up the KO. And now this is a really difficult spot. Now that Hirofumi has lost the Smeargle, they've lost their redirection as well, and this Brute Bonnet starts to really come into its own with the ability to Sucker Punch, but also to Rage Powder away whatever the last Pokemon is in the back.
And still no Terastallization. This could be the moment that Gio decides that the Brute Bonnet is just too vulnerable. You have to lock it in soon, Gio. There's still no Terra. Attempted double Protect here on what looks like that Koraidon for Hirofumi. The Sucker Punch also failing thanks to that Protect lock-in, only doing damage into a damaging move. The Heat Wave double connect. That will be Koraidon down, but Hirofumi celebrating there. And now Incineroar is what our attention moves on to. What can the Incineroar achieve here? Can it KO the Brute Bonnet? Can it KO the Chi-Yu? The knockoff, Chi-Yu, goodbye.
Clever knockoff there from Hirofumi, just making sure that the Flare Blitz, which recoil damage would have probably knocked out the Incineroar there, was really, really well judged. Now, Koraidon, asleep in the back, comes in, and here's that Calyrex that's been waiting in the wings. Now I think is the time that Gio has to commit their Terror. Really just try to not take super effective damage from a Glacial Lance, even with his Photosynthesis boost in defense. Now, there is an opportunity for the Sucker Punch to knock out the Incineroar in this spot, but the question is can you do that while a Calyrex is on the field and you really want to put that Pokemon to sleep?
Such fine margins for this Incineroar, and the Koraidon, of course, snoozing away. It's going to have to wake up to be able to deal with this Calyrex. There's not a huge amount that, well, I mean, with the Sucker Punch on the board state, there are mind games aplenty here, but if Koraidon doesn't wake up on this turn, this could well be Hirofumi stamping their ticket.
Yeah, the question is what is this Incineroar going to do? Is it going to fall foul of this Sucker Punch? Is the Brute Bonnet going to be able to get that Spore off? But one thing it is going to be able to do is go to that Terra Water, a defensive terrestrialization. We've mated turn after turn for this. Gio now getting it.
Right, it's time for this crucial turn. Koraidon, my friend, are you going to be waking up here? Are you going to be staying asleep? There will be the wake. This could be what Gio needs. The big flare blitz in the sun. It all came down to that. Just when the back was against the wall, Gio, the master of suspense, whips things around and claims game one.
What an incredible end game there. I thought that Koraidon was going to have to stay asleep for a little bit longer, but Gio, just knowing that that was an opportunity for him, going for it, whether or not the Brute Bonnet would have won in that end game on its own is something that we will never know. And what a well-played game to both of our players. Hirofumi with the speedy Smeargle just putting a lot of pressure onto Gio's side, but Gio remaining so calm in that situation, knowing not to commit the Terror too early, and that was the key to victory for him.
Oh my goodness gracious me, Ben. If Koraidon doesn't wake up that turn, then the battle is probably going in Hirofumi's direction. These are the fine margins that can come into contention here. It's a good thing that Gio's Koraidon had already burnt some turns of sleep previously in the game, because switching in on 17 HP, I believe it was, and just able to wake up in the nick of time. Oh my, I'm not sure my heart can take much more of this here. Look at this, Hirofumi is just so frustrated at that moment that the Koraidon wakes up. But listen, that's all in the past. Hirofumi has to find a way to put that behind them as Gio celebrates with their fans. One game stands between Gio and Championship Sunday tomorrow. Potentially two more games stand between Hirofumi and that hallowed World Championship title tomorrow as well. With that Nashville t-shirt, let's see if Hirofumi can turn things around, get themselves to another Worlds final since 2019.
I think Hirofumi had the right idea as well with the game plan. Tried to utilize the Smeargle as much as possible, and he got everything that he needed to set up that board state. But this is what I was talking about in the early game where, well, in the team preview, where Gio kind of has that little bit of a matchup advantage. It looks like Hirofumi wants to play the faster, aggressive early game, but I'm wondering whether or not Gio will be switching things up for game two.
It could all come down to this, trainers. Potentially our final game of top four. Here's Gio Cischke. Here's Hirofumi Kimura. It's going to be Koraidon and Chiyu. It's going to be Koraidon and Smeargle once more. Let's hear it for our incredible trainers up there on the stage.
And immediately we're off to this really aggressive start again with Koraidon and Chiyu just putting a lot of pressure onto the Smeargle. Whether or not it gets its Moody boost or not, the question is, and still is, from game one, whether or not the Koraidon and Hirofumi side can actually deal effectively with this Chiyu. This might be another situation where low kick actually comes back to bite Hirofumi in this position, because actually onto a Chiyu, that's a pretty low base power move. Maybe the reason that Gio is content not to go for the Terror here.
Is it going to be another double tech just like we saw in game one? Yes, it certainly is. So now Hirofumi will have the advantage of knowing what Gio is locked into with their Chiyu. The Heat Wave, the move of choice, spread damage, even more damage in the sun, and with the Beads of Ruin reducing the special defense of everything around it. And now we turn our attention to Gio's Koraidon, just attempting close combat, wanting to remove that Koraidon as quickly as they possibly can.
This is a really nice game plan from Gio as well, is trying to knock out the Koraidon there as quickly as possible, because that's the main damage dealer that Gio is worried about, and Hirofumi's going to have to be mindful of that. But if you go for the follow me, you're not going for the Spore in these sort of scenarios. So you have to trade your Smeargle for the ability for your Koraidon to attack. Otherwise, Geo's Koraidon, which looks like it's going to be the speedier one in this situation, in combination with a Heat Wave from the Chi-Yu, would easily be able to pick up the KO on Hirofumi's Koraidon.
Will it be the move of choice for Geo here? One game stands between them and making it to Championship Sunday tomorrow, and they're going to have to lock in to be able to secure it, because one thing's for certain, Hirofumi is not going to be able to give them an easy time of it. The Heat Wave, there's going to be a miss onto one of these targets, and the dodger will be the Smeargle. Its focus sash remains intact. That could be huge. That means that the close combat is not going to be KOing the Smeargle through its focus sash this turn. What has the Smeargle been responding with? Well, first of all, after the Koraidon for Geo softens itself up, the recoil of that close combat, and indeed the Life Orb, we're going to see the Koraidon go for low kick, and it's going to be enough for the KO onto Geo's Koraidon there, softened up as it was from close combat. And now the Smeargle, the boost to the speed once more, and the attack drop. I don't know what Hirofumi is telling this Smeargle in the break between games, but it's certainly getting all the rolls that it needs.
And this is the point where you've got to make a decision if you're Geo. That speed boost happening again, but we know the Brute Bonnet can redirect any spores away from this Chi-Yu, and maybe the Chi-Yu is the thing that Geo needs to rely on in this match. Just keep on attacking over and over again with a Heat Wave, and eventually you do enough damage to be able to carve through your opponent. If Geo can maintain that Lunala with a Meteor Beam as well, and a likely Incineroar that's in the back, a likely Calyrex Ice Rider, if game one is any indication, that would be in the back. Lunala is that Pokemon that you really do want in the end game, rather than the Brute Bonnet.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Shadow Shield intact, it could just be the ace card that Geo needs in this situation. But Brute Bonnet is making an earlier appearance this game. The Protosynth is giving him that all-important defense boost. Oh, that Smeargle is still staring down Geo's team from the other side of the field when it could have been down and out on the previous turn.
And it's so difficult as well, because if the Brute Bonnet redirects an attack from the Koraidon and it goes down, it's probably a Flare Blitz that would be needed to knock it out on this turn. It might be one of those situations where the extra recoil coming out from Flare Blitz, Brute Bonnet with the really high HP is enough to put the Koraidon into range of the Heat Wave from Chi-Yu. Maybe that could be the difference maker in this match.
Okay, considering the Sucker Punch into the Smeargle here, predicting a damaging move, Koraidon's going to be switching out, and coming in its place. Going to have to be careful what's coming in, because Chi-Yu could really threaten it down, but Incineroar, the perfect switch in. Fire Dark versus Fire Dark. The attack drop onto the Brute Bonnet, crucially. Smeargle just protecting itself. Has Hirofumi got their Incineroar in for free here? The Sucker Punch attempted, so Smeargle, really good call there. And now, of course, we know the Chi-Yu locked into Heat Wave, which in the sun and with the Beads of Ruin is not going to do insignificant damage to this Incineroar by any means.
No, it's like, this is a really clever set of plays from both of our players, right? Because
okay, it's the speed drop there.
Speed drop now, but the Smeargle still has one speed boost, and actually, that is a big deal in this scenario, actually, because the Smeargle now being at 1+ speed is likely slower than the Chi-Yu on Geo's side. So a Terra Ghost could be one of the ways that Geo can get around this fake out and still go for a Heat Wave. But if you do that, you open yourself up to a knockoff from this Incineroar, and so Hirofumi still looks to be on the upper end of this this scenario.
The fake out into the Chi-Yu. Not moving this turn with a critical hit for style points. Now the Rage Powder. Brute Bonnet is the center of attention. We know Chi-Yu isn't dishing out any damage. This means that Brute Bonnet could be really taking one for the team here, but of course the Spore, Brute Bonnet, a grass type, is not going to be put to sleep. Now, what's going to be the drop? The attack. Smeargle still at +1 to its speed.
But now Chi-Yu is likely going to be outspeeding it and putting pressure on with a Heat Wave. We've seen Hirofumi really be quite comfortable to have that Smeargle stay in and hedge their bets as to whether or not the Moody is going to activate in their favor or not. I wouldn't be surprised to see that again from Hirofumi. And the Chi-Yu is doing a great job of just whittling down Hirofumi's team, and that's something that Hirofumi's definitely going to need to be mindful of, because you can't switch a Calyrex in on one of those heat waves. The only way to have that taking front and center would be to have a Pokemon like Smeargle knocked out on this turn and try to bring it in. Most notably as well, Hirofumi not committed to Terra yet, so a Terra on the Calyrex that's likely in the back could be a route to victory here.
Well, the one route Brute Bonnet is taking is off the field. Lunala, the Pokemon fan, is joining in, and aren't we all trainers? That gleaming, shiny Lunala in the face of another spiky shield from the Smeargle here, just trying to preserve it as long as Hirofumi possibly can. Heat Wave once more, and again, it's all going to rack up against this Incineroar, but actually it's going to be the miss here. So Incineroar is all the safer now. Knockoff into the Chi-Yu, the Choice Scarf now removed.
And now, if the Moody drops the speed again, I think Hirofumi will be a little bit unhappy. Here's the special
defense, and the attack drops.
Okay, so now this Smeargle with the Choice Scarf removed from the Chi-Yu, one stage of increased speed will be the fastest Pokemon on the field. But now it can only target one Pokemon at a time, right? So Lunala gets the opportunity to try to attack. And if not Chi-Yu, if Chi-Yu is the target of a Spore from Hirofumi, then Chi-Yu gets to attack.
It's not necessarily a great thing as well to remove the Choice Scarf on the Chi-Yu, because it means you can switch up the move you lock into. It could actually come back to bite Hirofumi later in the game.
It all comes down to the switches as well with that Brute Bonnet in the back. If Hirofumi can make the right call here, then maybe this could put him in a really nice scenario to be able to clinch this game 2 here, come back in the set. If Hirofumi loses here, they are out of the tournament. They don't get a second try at getting a win in the World Finals.
Speaking of comeback, that's Lunala comeback and Brute Bonnet coming in its stead. The Spore attempted into that slot. Gio making fantastic calls left, right, and center. And finally, that Smeargle is down and out. Incineroar taking less damage than it did before. The sun no longer shining, beaming down from the sky. But what has been locked into? The parting shot. Chi-Yu now hitting less hard, and Incineroar going all the way to the back for Hirofumi, able to switch something else in fresh for the next turn.
This has done two things for Gio, but both the Brute Bonnet coming in and the Smeargle going down puts a lot less pressure on this Brute Bonnet again, just like in game 1, to stay in its grass-type form, and that's going to make a big difference against the Koraidon. And as we keep saying, the likely Calyrex Ice Rider in the back. Especially as well in this position in game 1, Gio had lost the Lunala at this point, and keeping it healthy in the back is a really great way to find a solution to the end game, especially with your Shadow Shield intact. And I think Hirofumi is going to have to do a lot of work to be able to deal with the Pokemon Gio still has remaining. Here's that Calyrex Ice Rider though coming back in.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lunala is something that Hirofumi wants to bait out sooner rather than later. Try and get some much needed damage on that so he can break the Shadow Shield and remove it from contention. Now, Brute Bonnet not going to be hitting as hard. Chi-Yu, special attacker, shrugs off that attack drop.
I think the route here for Hirofumi could be to try to go for a Leech Seed onto that Brute Bonnet, start trying to recover away. It's not the fastest way to win a match, but it's certainly keeping that Calyrex as healthy as possible could be something that's very important.
But Brute Bonnet, the grass type, isn't going to be able to take that Leech
Right,
Seed.
so if it's Terra Water or not.
Water.
Yeah.
And that's another reason that these mind games are oh so prevalent in these trainers' minds.
I think it's like the Brute Bonnet doesn't at the moment have its Defense Pro Synthesis boost and won't be able to take advantage of the Citrus Berry with Calyrex on the field and its as-one ability. So it is a difficult call to make to not go for your Terra Water in this spot. But the Calyrex is going for a Terra of its own. That Terra Fairy gives it a great matchup in this scenario.
An incredible match between these two fantastic trainers. The Terra Fairy, but the Brute Bonnet is staying as a grass type. Has this been the call that they need? Well, with Spore able to connect down into the Calyrex. A little bit of breathing room now for Gio, but still so vulnerable to the Incineroar that could threaten him with the Flare Blitz. The knockoff once more. Chiu's already lost its Choice Scarf, and that means that knockoff isn't hitting as hard, but you're just chipping away as much as you can and maybe trying to get the jump on a Lunala that could have been switching in there.
Yes, Lunala in the back is looking even more devastating in this spot where the Brute Bonnet is a little bit faster than I think maybe Hirofumi was expecting, and that's certainly something that has put the advantage squarely in Gio's favor. with the Calyrex asleep, yes, it could wake up at any point, but the Glacial Lances would have to start connecting and getting those boosts up so that the Calyrex could try to deal with this Lunala in the back. Let's not forget as well, the Lunala in the back is also a Terra Water, just like this Brute Bonnet, so there is two ways that Geo can utilize a very nice defensive Terra Water against his opponent Hirofumi.
Need to remove this Incineroar as quickly as possible to make your Lunala all the safer. Now it is time for that terrestrialization. Geo called the timing perfectly in the last games. Let's see if it works out just as well in this one. Brute Bonnet is now a water-type Pokemon. Is not taking half as much damage from fire. Is not taking half as much damage from ice. The overheat, fire-type move into the Incineroar, not going to be enough to secure the KO here. Reducing the special attack drop harshly of that Chi-Yu to boot. And the backup Flare Blitz as well. There will be some recoil, but it looks like this Incineroar might just be hanging on the field for Hirofumi here. Yeah, that looks like about 1 HP that it's clinging on with. The Seed Bomb, though, that's going to be enough to remove the Incineroar from contention. We're down to a 2v2 trainers, Brute Bonnet and Lunala versus Koraidon and Calyrex Ice Rider.
A really nice play from Hirofumi there to try to take a knockout. Oh, and the Trick Room as well. Okay.
My goodness me, this means that Calyrex is going to be moving first. The slowest Pokemon, Trick Room, has just reversed the speed orders here.
But that does mean that the Lunala in the back is going to be faster than the Koraidon in the back for Hirofumi. Not only that, the Brute Bonnet Spore is still very much a threat for Hirofumi to be able to deal with, and so you can see where Hirofumi's trying to go in this match, trying to really leverage the power of Calyrex Ice Rider in this endgame scenario, but reversing the dimensions looks like it's helping Geo more at the moment.
You've got to love that defense boost on the Brute Bonnet as well in the face of these two physical attackers. That could make the difference between Geo losing this game and winning it. 1 HP is infinitely more than 0.
And now the decision as to where you target. I think you've got to be really accurate here, but I think there's no reason for Geo not to play this just nice and straight. Go for the Spore on the Koraidon and just get that special attack boost on the Lunala. It's going to be so difficult for Hirofumi to come back from this scenario.
The Leech Seed, of course, will be breaking Lunala's Shadow Shield. The Meteor Beam now with the Power Herb. It's going to be activating in 1 turn, but can it connect the special attack boost? The Power Herb activation. Lunala channeling all of that Luna energy. Here it is, the Meteor Beam into Hirofumi's Calyrex. It takes it pretty handily.
And the double Leech Seed here actually could be a route to victory for Hirofumi. Both the Brute Bonnet and the Lunala are really high HP Pokemon, but it might be so difficult if Hirofumi isn't able to protect every other turn to deal with the fact that or to get the extra turns of recovery, especially as Koraidon's asleep. The Moongeist Beam from the Lunala is almost certainly a KO into that slot, and now here it is, the Calyrex protecting, just wanting to get as much HP recovery as possible.
The Spore attempted down into that slot just to try and make this even cleaner for Geo, but now the Moongeist Beam, Koraidon for Hirofumi. Will it be returning to Area 0 on this turn? Yes, it certainly will with that special attack boost. Geo already having a mini celebration, remaining so calm and so very collected. The leftovers recovery though, the Leech Seed recovery to boot. If there's one Pokemon that might be able to turn this around for Hirofumi, it is this oh-so-bulky, oh-so-healthy Calyrex Ice Rider.
The Leech Seed has done a lot of work in this endgame where the Lunala now doesn't have its Shadow Shield. The Calyrex is keeping itself relatively healthy and getting a second Leech Seed. Oh, the Brute Bonnet doesn't connect.
Brute Bonnet. It's all coming up. Geo now. Spore. Calyrex Ice Rider not going to attack. Is going to be asleep for at least the next turn. This seems like it could be it. The night is clear. The sky is starry. The moon is shining bright. Calyrex looks like it might just be able to hang on through one more of those, especially with leftovers, especially with Leech Seed. All of a sudden, it looks like this horse might have galloped its last.
It's looking that way as the HP recovers onto the Calyrex. I think that second leech seed could have been absolutely pivotal there for Hirofumi. Looking at the amount of HP recovery, if it was able to recover just slightly more than Gio is able to do every turn, then maybe there is a way for the Calyrex to come back. But here's the seed bomb, and it's going to be the Moongeist Beam following it up.
Following it up, but it's probably not going to be able to get the KO unless there's any kind of critical hit here. Oh, it does it! The critical hit! Trainers, meet your second finalist in Championship Sunday tomorrow, Cischke!
Congratulations, Gio, for making it to the finals here. Lap it up. Everyone give Gio another round of applause.
And the crowd goes absolutely wild. We have an all-NA final here in Anaheim, California. You couldn't make it up. Breathe it in, my friend. Yes, it's all for you. Hirofumi, huge congratulations as well. It's wonderful to see a little smile on Hirofumi's face there. My goodness, Ben. Gio Cischke, the trainer who has had an absolutely breakout season, the trainer who has capitalized on all of those fantastic regulation set I results with this team that they've barely changed over the course of the entire format. It just goes to show, stick with what you know.
That is the message here. I think the way that Gio played, that was absolute testament to knowing your team through and through. This team that Hirofumi was running and the many other teams that Gio has faced over this weekend. Gio just has that advantage of not only understanding his team so well, but also having a team that most players haven't necessarily played every single day of the week. It's no Calyrex Zamazenta composition that we see so many times on these top tables. And I love to see that these slightly different, slightly more interesting or intricate combinations of Pokemon that don't look like they're necessarily the strongest thing in the format on the surface are making it all the way here at Worlds.
I gotta say, I can't say I'm entirely surprised to see that Calyrex Shadow Rider hasn't and Zamazenta have not had the greatest performance in our top cut at the World Championships, because of course, exactly as you say, everyone's prepared against that strategy. Being caught off guard by a team that I'm not sure I've really seen anyone pilot this team to the same success that Gio Cischke has here just means that comfort goes such a long way in Pokemon. Yes, you can pick up the team that's just won the most recent championship, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the quality of the pilot behind it. And trainers, Gio is just one such high-quality pilot.
Especially seeing the way that Chi-Yu just stuck on the field and kept attacking turn after turn after turn. I think the amount of poise that Gio showed in that match really shone through. The way that he was able to just hold on to his endgame scenarios. There were a couple of calls there that could have made things a little bit easier for Hirofumi along the way, but there's where the familiarity comes in. There's where the flexibility comes in, and that's how you get these results in the moment, where we've got a format where you've got to make the reads, you've got to make the calls, you've got to try to position yourselves as best as possible.
It's impossible not to smile along with Gio there as they saw that victory to their name. This will be the third time at the World Championships that we've had an all-US finals. Ray Rizzo versus Wolf in 2012, Wolf Glick versus Jonathan Evans in 2016, and now James Evans versus Gio Cischke. Incredible storylines being made all around here. James Evans, a previous international champion. Now Gio Cischke, this is by far the biggest achievement to their name. Will they go all the way tomorrow? Ben, this is a trainer that we've been discussing for the past few weeks saying, could he do it? Do you reckon Gio could do it?
There's a
chance.
Every time we come back to Gio's name, we're like, oh look, Gio's done really well again. I think this is something I've play tested with Gio in past formats, and is certainly a very intelligent player with the way that he approaches the game. But also, it feels like this has been quite a long time coming. I feel like over the last few seasons, Gio's been knocking on the door, and finally that door is just creeping open for him to take that world champion title. And certainly with the amount of work that I know that Gio has put in over the last few weeks, few months, working on this team, I couldn't say that which of our finalists that we have here, Gio or James, is going to be able to take it all. It's going to be just a fantastic day tomorrow.
Oh my goodness gracious me. Tomorrow can't come soon enough, but on the other hand, we've got to breathe in the moment, haven't we, trainers? Because tomorrow, the 2025 season ends. Enjoy the next 24 hours, because soon we will no longer have regulations that and we'll be into a brand new season in 2026. But let's keep our eyes on the present for now and celebrate Gio Cischke in a matchup that, you know, you and I were talking before the match, Ben, and saying that looks like Gio maybe has the advantage here, unless Smeagol gets up to its shenanigans.
And
what did it do in game one? It gets +6 to its speed. That is just shenanigans with a capital S there. And yeah, the fact that Hirofumi had that back against the wall, setting up that trick room, but it meant, of course, that then you're being outspared by the with your Koraidon in trick room by Gio's side of the field. And oh goodness, they tried everything they possibly could, both trainers, and ultimately it came up Gio.
I think so. It's like, you never know how a game 3 could have gone. I think a Leech Seed connection there into the Brute Bonnet could have been an actual win condition there for Hirofumi. Could have taken us into a game 3, but you never know how that's going to go. Whether Smeagol gets the shenanigans of 3 games in a row is really anyone's guess. And yeah, I think you've got to give props to Hirofumi for both their tournament run at large, but also understanding what their win condition is so clearly and playing to it. I mean, it's something that you always really have to recognize here.
Well, the door has been blown wide open by Gio Cischke into championship finals tomorrow. And who has the key? Let's go and hear from Gio Cischke.
Thank you so much. I am so proud to introduce to you your second 2025 World Championships finalist, Giovanni Cischke. Let's hear some noise. Gio, earlier when you were talking to Sierra, you mentioned you've never won a medal, but you just locked in winning a trophy. So how does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like indescribable. I've been going at this for a long time. I've lost 3 top 8 sets at regionals in the past and top cut North American Internationals this year, but I've fallen short at every point of getting some sort of hardware, and finally that's come to fruition with this, and I've gone one step further, and it feels amazing.
I can imagine. And going into just the weekend, I mean, how did it feel? You mentioned that in the past World Championships, you just haven't quite found your footing, but it seems like here you're just absolutely smashing it.
Yeah, with Yokohama, I felt like that was my first Worlds at least, Yokohama 2023. I felt like I was quite a strong player in the field, but my team was not up to par with the rest of the field. And then for Honolulu, I was able to make it to the second day of competition, but I fell flat after that. And for the entire year, ever since then, I had been constantly thinking in my mind that I can get back to that point and I can go further. And it's been a long process, lots of ups and downs, and I'm glad to represent the USA in finals along with James Evans this year.
For sure. I imagine part of that process as well has been the fact that you've used a very similar team basically throughout Regulation I. Have you ever been tempted to change your strategy or just try something completely new, or did you want to just fall back on comfort for the World Championships?
In terms of the World Championships, I would say no. Earlier this season in May with Portland Regionals, I was trying my hardest to avoid playing this team and use literally anything else. I thought it was perhaps a bit outdated at the time, and a lot of other players, particularly Europeans, found the team to be pretty outdated. But I ended up saying, like, I'm not gonna find anything that I feel better with. And I was able to make it to the top 8 there and prove why it still is a viable team. And from there, I just kept on going at it. A lot of other people kind of dropped off the team. It was an early meta team, but I kept on pushing with it and trying to really maximize my value with the team in all the games. And I feel like it really shows that, you know, of course with James running Calyx Shadow Koraidon for the entire format, and mine now, that the GS Cup formats particularly reward experience.
100%. Let's talk about your top 4 match. What was your strategy going up against Hirofumi?
Well, First of all, Hirofumi is an incredible player, quite possibly considered to be the best Japanese player of all time who hasn't won a world championship. So there was a lot on the line, of course, being in top 4 against him, and a lot going through my mind in that aspect. But I wanted to lead off with Koraidon Chiyu just to deal a lot of damage, and Lunala Brute Bonnet was able to kind of anchor the Trick Room mode, be able to slow down the game, and help minimize the value of Smeargle, although that wasn't exactly what happened, but it ended up working out in the end, and I'm proud of how I played.
For sure. Now, Giovanni, we'll next see you tomorrow in the arena, but until then, are there any shout-outs you want to give to anybody watching at home, or maybe your fans in the crowd? I certainly see a lot of them out there.
First of all, I want to give a massive thank you to my family. They have been extremely supportive, and the only reason that I'm here today is because they took me to my first regional championship back in seniors, and it's been a long time since then. Even driving as far as like 26 hours to get to North American Internationals in 2018 when I was in seniors. My parents have been there the whole way. My brother has been pushing me to be the best that I can be, and I am incredibly thankful for their support. On top of that, I want to thank everyone who has supported me along the way, both at home and here in the venue, as you can see. I've met a fantastic number of players and other people across the weekend here at the World Championships, and it's been a pleasure meeting every single one of you, and I hope to give you guys a good show tomorrow.
All right, well, let's hear it one more time for your second World finalist, Giovanni Cischke. Giovanni will be returning to the stage in the arena tomorrow for Championship Sundays to play James Evan in what should be an electrifying title match. So make sure to stay tuned for that. That's it for us here on stage, though, for day 2 of the competition. Let's go ahead to the lounge to wrap up the show.